This substance is the sweet dream of an intestine that's simply tired of bacteria, viruses, allergens, and toxins entering the body through its compromised wall. This substance is the dream of an immune system that lacks the fire to fight those very enemies that the intestine has seen fit to let through and admit. And also muscles, the brain, but let's get into the details. My name is Julia Schlotkauer. I'm a doctor, nutritionist, and an advocate for your mitochondria. Subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and watch this video to the end to find out how important this substance is for your gut and immunity. Today we're going to talk about an amino acid that is important to our body, not just as a component of protein, but also as a free amino acid, which, by the way, has a higher concentration in the blood than others, and that is glutamine. Let me clarify right away. Glutamine has a little sister, glutamic acid. These are two different amino acids. Glutamine contains more nitrogen, so it is the main distributor, the donor, providing the body specifically with nitrogen. Glutamic acid is its sister. And here you might ask, wait, why do I actually need to know about nitrogen? And here's my favorite expression, which I repeat in almost every single video. Life is the mode of existence of protein bodies. And looking at the periodic table, protein bodies are distinguished by the fact that they contain nitrogen. Protein equals nitrogen. And now, the culmination of this brainstorming session. If I say that glutamine is the main nitrogen distributor in the body, then it is urgently needed wherever there's new protein, a new cell, a new structure where cells divide and tissues are renewed and updated. And pay attention. The first tissues you should think about right now are the intestinal tissues. Right now, as you are watching this frame, at this very moment, millions, just millions of mucosal cells are dividing and renewing in your gut, which need glutamine like air so that this Lego-like construction can happen and a properly permeable lining can be created. The intestine is the primary site of conflict between outsiders from the external world and the body's environment. Nutrition is not just about bringing benefits, energy, and building something new. Digestion is a strategic decision-making process about what or who we let inside. These are proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. And who should we not let in? And here we have toxins, allergens, bacteria, and viruses. And the main decision-making boundary is our intestinal mucosa. Now imagine for a moment if this mucosa fails, if it's not fully functional and can let an intruder inside. And this happens simply because it didn't have enough glutamine. Or let's think about immunoglobulin A. This is a protein that lives on the mucous membranes, on all the mucous membranes of our body and protects them. So it's an immune protein. As one doctor said, our immunity is 1.5 kilograms of protein. And let's say glutamine is also part of that. I want to show you that glutamine deficiency can be the snag that leads to a weakened immune system, catabolic, meaning destructive processes in the muscles, and impaired tissue healing. Glutamine is the primary energy fuel for lymphocytes. What are lymphocytes? These are immune cells whose task is to remember the enemy and record it, and to deploy new units to fight it if it suddenly reappears. An experiment showed that with a glutamine deficiency, it drops by 40%. Antigen presentation in the immune system. You might ask, what is antigen presentation? I'll explain it now. Here's a composite sketch. This sketch needs to be filled out and sent everywhere and a new unit must be formed so that if the enemy is met, they can be defeated. When such a presentation doesn't happen, like look at this sketch, then no one saw anything, no one knows anything, and they're already among us. We didn't have enough glutamine to identify and destroy the enemy. Natural killers? These are cells that can quickly and clearly destroy the enemy without much explanation. By the way, natural killers are the primary cells for anti-tumor defense. and they also function because of glutamine. Plus, don't forget that immunity is 1.5 kilograms of protein, and glutamine is an important amino acid that builds proteins. Glutathione is the main antioxidant of our body. Remember that very night? It consists of 3 amino acids: glycine, cysteine, and glutamic acid, glutamine's little sister. The thing is, it's just one step from glutamine to glutamic acid. And look how interesting this is. In studies, adding glutamine to patients' diets increased glutathione levels in the small intestine compared to other tissues. So, glutathione was built right in the gut, and here we draw a conclusion. It's not just that glutamine is a great substance for building the mucosa, but also for creating protection inside the gut, which is an extra defense. An important point, glutamine as a source of energy. After all, it has not only a decent supply of nitrogen, but also a good carbon skeleton that can be used as firewood when needed. To feed it into the Krebs cycle as alpha-ketoglutarate and get energy. The most interesting part is that the gut uses this glutamine trick too. We can see this in the youngest patients. They took children from 6 to 24 months old during acute diarrhea and gave them glutamine. And look, compared to the control group, the time, meaning the duration of the diarrhea itself, was reduced. This means that their gut recovered faster with the use of glutamine. Let's dwell on the word recovery. Wounds, burns, surgeries. This is another moment where glutamine might be needed. Acutely, and its deficiency can be critical. It turned out that blood glutamine levels after surgery can stay low for 2 to 7 days. This means that glutamine is very important somewhere for recovery. And now imagine this: every day, every minute, the gut needs glutamine, but then the body takes it away to heal some wound or burn. And can you imagine what happens? The gut's barrier function drops, which means immunity drops. And so during post-op recovery, we've let the enemy in and chaos ensues. And this is called post-operative complications. Glutamine isn't just for recovery. One of its most important functions is to remove ammonia. Ammonia is excess nitrogen that the body no longer needs, and it is toxic. Where can it form? Wherever tissue repair is taking place. This sort of Lego game between amino acids, where energy is needed, and this energy is obtained from amino acids, essentially from protein. We take the carbon skeleton for fuel, or we don't need the nitrogen, and nitrogen is that very ammonia. Finally, ammonia forms wherever H. pylori is present. Our previous topics. By the way, if you haven't seen the video on H. pylori, be sure to watch it. So the glutamine skeleton is the best collector of ammonia in the body. It can collect it from all the tissues. Glutamic acid, that very sister, attaches ammonia to itself. But for this, attention, take note, you need magnesium, it shouldn't be deficient, and manganese. Additionally, glutamine helps the kidneys regulate the acid-base balance. It's also an energy source for the kidneys, and it helps them excrete nitrogen. As an alternative energy source, that is, an alternative to glucose, glutamine can be useful during sugar cravings, not in hypoglycemic states or on a low-carb diet. And even with alcohol abuse, because during alcohol consumption, blood sugar drops, that is, its level. Now, for an important point, where do we get glutamine from? From food. It is found in practically all protein products. And it must be said that even plant protein contains more of it than animal protein. For instance, soy protein is 80% glutamine. It's also found in free form as an amino acid. For example, in Parmesan cheese, in seafood, in fish, in potato broth. We get between 2 and 7 grams of glutamine from food every day. It's worth noting that our body itself synthesizes 40 to 80 grams of glutamine per day. In case of great need, the lungs and liver will start synthesizing glutamine, but most importantly, muscle tissue. Muscle tissue contains up to 60% glutamine, which is 90% of the entire body's reserves. Now imagine if the need for glutamine for just this one amino acid increases sharply. This is the reason for the onset of protein catabolism, which is its breakdown in muscle tissue. And the need for glutamine, in addition to everything said about the gut, immunity, and energy, increases under stress. Here is another reason why stress opens the gates to infection. The demand for glutamine increases sharply. The barrier function of the gut drops and immune strength decreases. And there you have it, say a new code. Therefore, glutamine is an important protector for the gut and immunity during stress. And also don't forget that glutamine protects the mucous membranes of the gastrointestinal tract when taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Paracetamol, diclofenac, ibuprofen and others. It's very important. Now just listen closely to this information. 70% of the glutamine that you take, whether from food or as a supplement, the gut will not release into the body. That is, the gut will keep the maximum amount of glutamine for itself. Doesn't this fact emphasize how important glutamine is for the gut? Therefore, in many studies for various diseases, such as leaky gut syndrome, that is increased intestinal permeability, irritable bowel syndrome, and other inflammatory diseases, glutamine was used, which showed positive dynamics under various conditions.
Excuse me, will there be anything for athletes?
Of course, and there will be information for you now. So, glutamine in sports? Let's start with a fact. The content of glutamic acid, glutamine's little sister, drops right during exercise within muscle tissues, especially in type 2 fibers, by almost 70%. And glutamine itself drops 2 hours after a workout by up to 30% within the muscle tissue. And now let's list the special benefits of glutamine for athletes. High-intensity strength training is always a threat of ammonia, which needs to be removed quickly. For example, soccer players face the danger of hyperammonemia, which is high ammonia. Glutamine helps to remove it. Next, we consider that the depletion of glutamine during and after a workout is always a threat to the immune system. So glutamine is an extra way to protect your immunity. Now, for a special group of athletes who say, I want to work out, but I have a chronic illness or inflammation. Or, for example, those hardcore athletes who want to train even if they have a cold today or the first signs of one. At this exact moment, as you now understand, your immunity needs glutamine, so it will definitely be necessary for you if you want to exercise while already having some inflammation in your body. Also, don't forget that stress is an additional reason for glutamine loss. And taking glutamine also increases growth hormone synthesis. Growth hormone equals the creation of new muscle tissue. This is always very necessary and important for athletes as well as for growing children. So pay special attention to your child's diet. The ideal form of a glutamine supplement is the L-glutamine powder itself, the pure substance. We dissolve it in water and drink it immediately. Attention, do not prepare these solutions in advance because glutamine breaks down quite quickly in water. That is, take the powder, dissolve it, and drink it. There is another form, the peptide one, peptide glutamine. It is prepared from wheat. So attention, the substance must be especially pure. And if you have any allergy to wheat, then it's better to take the pure powder of L-glutamine. But the peptide form is more stable and it is better absorbed, meaning it's absorbed in the intestines. However, the free form is usually still used. The amino acid L-glutamine. It's best to take glutamine between meals. if you take non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, then 30 minutes before taking your medication. For athletes, this can be a steady, that is constant intake. In the morning after waking up and also after training. Dosages for different needs vary from a few grams to 10 and even 20 grams per day. It's best to divide your dosage into several doses throughout the day, as this will be much better for all your body systems. Let's recall together what we might need glutamine for: injuries, burns, surgeries, power sports, loss of muscle mass, Helicobacter, taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, intestinal problems, and low immunity. By the way, another interesting point is pancreatitis. There are also quite a few studies showing that using glutamine during acute pancreatitis also yields positive results. And also, with the help of glutamine, we can address the problem of high ammonia in the body as part of complex therapy.
Excuse me, you say glutamine is good, but monosodium glutamate in a Chinese restaurant is supposedly bad.
Glutamine and glutamate, I agree, they sound similar. But sodium glutamate is a salt of glutamic acid. Remember glutamine's little sisters. And the thing is, this glutamic acid also acts as a neurotransmitter in our brain. That is, it works inside the brain. And if the membranes of this brain are permeable, meaning there's already an issue, which often starts with gut permeability, then yes, that large amount of glutamate from a Chinese restaurant can negatively affect your condition after eating that food. And there is data that specifically people with a vitamin B6 deficiency experience this flush or Chinese restaurant syndrome after consuming food with a high content of monosodium glutamate. Friends, I'll be happy to read in the comments about your experience using glutamine. In what situations, at what age, and in what dosages. What interesting things will you tell me? And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next video where I'll touch on another important area for using glutamine. But that's all for today. See you soon.